It just seems dark and wintry today. Maybe because it is wintry, right? It is the middle of December almost. Ugh, I can't believe how quick this year went. All right, I am going to just kind of jump in and talk about what insulin resistance is. There's all of these symptoms up here. There are so many things. I know I haven't talked about things like skin tags and skin discoloration. So I want to talk about that because it's one of the first signs that you may have insulin resistance and people are missing it. So if you're starting to get skin tags, I didn't get them until, I don't know, my 40s, but I just thought that's part of becoming a grandma. Like I was a grandma, I was getting older. I just thought that's what happens when the body gets older. I worked for doctors, and I had an esthetician that worked with us, and nobody ever said anything about skin tags being a sign of insulin resistance, or that if you took care of the insulin resistance, the skin tags would go away. So we're going to talk about insulin resistance. We're going to talk about the signs and symptoms. I'm going to tell you what helps. And you'll see up at the top, it's kind of buried in this one. Fasting, fiber, protein, and fats. That's the thing. You guys want to remember. Fasting, fiber, protein, and fats. FFPF. That's your clue. We're going to give that out early. I'm going to come back to it later. But insulin resistance, what is it? Does anybody Does anybody know this morning's been really super crazy for me? All right, so insulin resistance. Thanks for bearing with me. You guys, is when our body is converting so much energy that it calls on this hormone insulin. Insulin is a really great hormone to have, but we don't need to have too much of it. We need to have just the right amount, and that amount isn't very much. It's supposed to just deliver the energy that we've eaten as food and deliver it to the cells of the body. But in today's world, with our food being modified, manufactured, our food is converting too quickly to energy or glucose, and then that's creating a need for insulin. So a long-term need for insulin at a high level starts to create resistance to that insulin. So now the cells don't want to take up the energy. Now they don't want to get the fuel that they need. You're feeling tired and fatigued and have body aches and pains and have migraines and have all of that stuff because the body's just out of whack and not functioning like it's supposed to. Insulin is out all the time and the cells are just sick of it. So what we really need to do to help all of this dysfunction in our body, and almost all disorders today that are dietary driven are related to insulin resistance. So we need to know that if we get this one thing under control, all the need for medications and crazy things that we're doing can go away. It's actually very simple. So I wasn't sure how I was going to go about this morning, so I'm just going to kind of wrap with it, all right? But it just brings to mind the medications because I was talking to a young man last night, um, and his dad is a friend of my son's, and the dad has diabetes, and we were talking about the protocol that I do. We were talking about how I help people with diabetes and insulin resistance, and he said, "Yeah, well, my dad's just taking that Monjaro." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So one thing I want you to know is I am not a proponent of medications. I guess if there's somebody who's extremely resistant and they just really, really have nothing else they can do, that's fine. Um, Under care and for a very short period of time, maybe. But for the majority of us to just run to a drug like Mounjaro, Ozempic, semaglutide, people are saying, "Oh, I had great results." But on the other side, what people are not telling you are the amounts of people who've called me and said, or texted me and said that their thyroid is now destroyed, or that their pancreas is now destroyed, or that their gallbladder is now having problems, or that they're having kidney function problems, or that they ended up with gastroparesis. So all of those things are linked to those drugs. It is listed in the PDR. And so why? You guys, please, if you want to take care of your health, take care of your health. I was listening to Dr. Lustig yesterday, and he was talking about the fact, this one of the things that I agree with, but we have this influx of medications, and the medications are not treating the root cause of these diseases and disorders. They're picking at symptoms and trying to address those symptoms, but in dealing with those symptoms, they're creating other symptoms. And so that creates a need for another drug, and that creates a need for another drug. And are you getting better? Is your health getting better by all of these drugs and medications? Most people would say no. Their numbers look good, but do they feel good? Is their body functioning properly? No. So what I want to talk about here is how you're going to start having a body that functions properly, health that feels good to you. And so also would like to bring up the fact that he was talking about this, and I'm learning all the time. So I always thought that insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, heavy weight was all together. What Dr. Lustig was talking about is that some people can gain weight and still be healthy on the inside. Now, we've talked about that. So thin, and he said this, thin is not an indicator of your health. Like if you're morbidly obese, there's a problem. You probably are sick. But there are some people who just tend to carry a little more fat. That's the way their body functions. That doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. So instead of looking at the size of a person, instead of looking at, those indicators and being like, oh, they must be unhealthy because they're heavy, we need to understand that the health comes from the inside out and what's happening with the cells of our body, because there are very thin people who are much more unhealthy than some people who have a little excess weight. So for yourself and for everyone else, I got stuff all over my hands again. Please understand that health is not always tied to the size of the body. And beyond that, there's different genetics, and people have, just like people have different height and whatnot, we have different bone structures, and just we carry our structure differently. So I don't like to talk about weight much because I don't want people to be focused on their weight. I want you to be focused on your health. That's my want and need. And I would hope that everybody starts to understand that health really is coming from the inside. Now, with insulin resistance, some interesting things are when we talk about the health from the inside, is that you have top and bottom, you have things going on. So we have things happening in the brain, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but we have this gut microbiome. Has everybody heard about the gut microbiome? And all that really is the microbiota, the bacteria in our gut. And we tend to have it driven out into two camps: good gut bacteria and bad bacteria. With insulin resistance, the bacteria that we consider to be bad, things like an overgrowth of yeast, starts to happen in the gut. And now your gut is inflamed and sick. That leaches out into you being inflamed and sick, whether you're fat or thin, right? The other things that are happening, I'll be doing a video on this morning. I'm working on getting it edited. But I like to talk about mental health disorders because so many people tend to think about um, insulin resistance as just being in the body. And then they forget that. And I've actually had people come at me over this, but anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, and now there's a study out about bipolar that are all linked to insulin resistance. So is it really a genetic disposition to being to having some mental disorder, or is our food causing our brain to not function properly, and it shows up as these symptoms? So one of the ways that it was happening with bipolar is that we have this blood-brain barrier, and that barrier helps protect us from negative toxins and whatnot that get into the brain from getting into the brain, because we have to protect our brain. But sometimes with bipolar, that blood-brain barrier has some leakage, and so things are getting in that aren't supposed to, and now you have these high mood swings. Well, they noticed that people with bipolar were more likely to be insulin resistant. And then there was a study done that had they used metformin as a drug to treat the diabetes, but by doing not to treat the diabetes, but they gave it as a treatment for the bipolar, and they noticed a marked improvement with the bipolar by helping with this diabetes drug. So now they're starting to say that, hey, insulin resistance is probably a bigger driver for even bipolar than we previously thought, and that maybe we should be taking a look at insulin resistance for all of these neurological disorders and see what really is at play with those. Is it really something that just can't be helped? Or when we do dietary changes, like getting the sugar down in our diet, can that help with all of these mental health disorders? And science is showing that it can. Is it the only cause of it? No. I want to be clear. I don't think that insulin resistance is the only cause to anything. But is it the major cause or the major link to most things? Yeah, it probably is. And more doctors are learning about it. The interesting things I was listening to with Dr. Lustig is, he talks about how he was in practice for so many years and fought this battle with other educators, with diabetic educators, and how they were telling people to drink fruit juice and to have these high sugary meals that they just needed to control how the insulin reacts. Well, that's kind of backwards because insulin is reacting to the sugar in your body. So let's dive in and talk about a little bit about how you're going to really simply get over insulin resistance. Now, there's a lot of people who've done different things, and I applaud everyone who's been able to do it on their own, and that's amazing. But let's be real, not everybody can do like a strictly vegan diet or do a strictly carnivore diet. Because again, that's going to depend on your genetics, how you react to those diets. But a lot of us just don't have the resources, the mental resources, the willpower resources to deal with something like that. I am a proponent of fasting. And why fasting? Well, and I'm not talking about that I think you have to do a 7 or 10 or 20-day fast or anything like that. But some intermittent fasting is really going to help your metabolism because you need to get your insulin levels down. Your metabolic flexibility, metabolic health means that you have two sides to the metabolism, insulin and glucagon. And when insulin is always, always, always running the show, which for most of us it is, we don't have a healthy metabolism. We end up with things like metabolic syndrome, where we have high heart rate, where we have a bulging belly and excess fat and mood problems and high insulin resistance. So the key is to get the insulin down enough that this other component, glucagon, can come out and do its job. Now, glucagon is the other side of the metabolic story, right? So insulin likes to hold on to things, to store things, to have things grow. Thank you, Aaron. Glucagon likes to eat things up, but because the body needs growth, can you imagine if glucagon was in control and it's always trying to eat things up? It's always trying to like tear things down in the body, and that would tear things down not in a bad way. But could you imagine what our health would look like? We need insulin to be prioritized so that it's delivering that energy as we eat to our body so that we can grow healthy cells, have the energy we need to do to have to work throughout the day, have the brain function that we need to have to make it through the day. If we didn't have insulin delivering that, if we didn't have that growth uh, mindset in the body, we would be depleted all the time and we just wouldn't live very long. So we need insulin, but we just need it to be out when we need it out. And Dr. Lustig, you're going to hear Dr. Lustig a lot because that's who I'm listening to right now. But he was talking about how we, even with medicine, with doctors, they're starting to have a difference in how much insulin should be in the body. Some studies have said if you do a fasting insulin test, it should be 10 millimoles per deciliter or less to be healthy. Now, Dr. Lustig is saying it should be 6 or less, even 3 or less, for you to be healthy. And so when people are getting insulin resistance tests or fasting insulin tests, and they're up around the 9 or 10, and their doctor says your insulin is fine, you're probably not. You guys understand that even a couple of decades ago, our blood pressure, they said that if you started at 100 and then added a point for every year old you were, that was a healthy blood pressure. So what they're really saying is that somebody who is 60 years old like me should have a blood pressure of 160 over 100 or lower, and that was normal. But now they know that that's too high, that that measure isn't correct. So we're constantly adjusting these numbers. Just because, even your diabetes numbers have changed. What they used to consider the threshold for diabetes with your A1C has come down as they've understood the disorder and disease. So you guys know your numbers. I don't expect you to know how to read your lab test, but if you care about your health, and I mean, you can ask. I'm not a doctor, I can't prescribe, I can pass on information from other people. But according to these specialists in the field of metabolism, like Dr. Lustig, they're saying probably 6 or less is where you should be with that fasting insulin test. If you have one, if you know what it is, then please check it. Because if you're A1C, no. So well, yes and no. Cash rec, thank you. Because I know in my head, I understand things and then I get it a little muddled. So there's A1C and there's fasting insulin. In the normal metabolic panel, you're going to have your A1C, your blood glucose, you're going to have some thyroid hormones, and then you're going to have a lipid panel. But they're not going to check your fasting insulin in your normal complete metabolic panel. That's just not going to be in there, and most doctors won't run it. And why? This is the interesting part. I never understood why. Because what they're saying with insulin is the test that they run is a very inexpensive test, and it kind of gives an overall picture of the insulin, but it's maybe not even the fasting insulin test that they do run is maybe not the most accurate test for insulin. And I've warned people of this all the time, that they found that it's not extremely accurate. Great to pull it to see if it's really high, then you want to really address it, but it's not always accurate. And now I'm understanding more about why it's not always accurate. So, like, the American Diabetes Association does not recommend that test, but they also don't recommend a lot of things that are actually helping diabetic health. So the American Diabetes Association needs to catch up to what these metabolic scientists who are specialists in this field are saying, because they're like decades ago and they're stuck in a rut of what they used to know or thought they knew, and they're giving out recommendations that these doctors would say are not good for your metabolic health and for diabetes. So A1C is a like a 3-month picture of where your blood sugars have been. So some days your blood sugars are high, some days they're low. The A1C kind of takes an overall look at what those blood sugars look like over a time period. So A1C shouldn't be run every month for most people. It should be run about every 3 months, because you can have some dietary changes in 1 month, but you're still capturing the 2 months before that with the A1C. So you might not see the change in it until you wait for about 3 months, and then you get that new snapshot of your blood sugars. Okay. The fasting insulin is testing your insulin hormone, not your blood sugars. Did that clear it up? I hope it did. So I am talking about both A1C and insulin. So insulin levels, if you're somebody who has gone in and said, hey, most times a regular doctor might not want to do it. Endocrinologists are doing it. But according to this specialist in the field, Dr. Lustig, you need to be at 6 or less with that fasting insulin. This number of 10 is still too high. And if you're close to 9 or 10, you still have an insulin problem, and we need to address it. And yet some people have, and look, I have worked for so many doctors and heard so many different stories on the same thing from different doctors based on their education base. And doctors like Lustig and Bickman, and um, it's not Mindy Pels, there's another doctor I've been listening to. They will all talk about how they were not taught this stuff in school. And so one interesting thing Dr. Lustig said last night also was that, doctors need to throw out their nutrition and relearn nutrition, because the model of nutrition that they've been taught, and you guys understand too that the textbooks that are being given in college for these physicians are primarily funded by the food industry or big pharma. So what do you think is going to happen with those? If you're being told that you're eating too much, or that that processed foods are not good for you, is that really good for an industry who's relying on you to buy those things? And it's a big mess out there. So as some doctors are saying, hey, wait, this we've gotten too far into just throwing medications at people. There's got to be something else going on. There is something else going on, and they're looking at that. They're starting to understand that most of our problems today are related to food disorders. You In the past, we had things like viral infections or plagues, injuries and whatnot, that there just not enough food that were causing illness in people. Now, what they're starting to wake up to, there's this big awakening in the medical field that part of our problem with why everyone across the board, across the world, is so sick is because of the food, and not just the food, but the availability of the food that we have is causing this illness. So all right, if you guys have questions about that, I'll come back to it. If just ask questions, I will stop and answer whatever I can. And if I don't know, I'm going to say I don't know, and then I'll go look it up and I will, post a video in the next day or two. Thank you, Becky, about what I found to help you guys out, because I know I have a different mind and I like to go dive into that stuff, but not everybody does. There are things I don't want to dive into and know, because this world that we live in is so inundating, right? It's just crazy, the amount of information. Who do you trust? What do you listen to? How do you decipher what to know? So part of what I do is try and to find reputable sources and bring that information here and pass it on, and then you guys can decide what you want to do with that information. Now, I'm going to be honest, I do represent a system, a protocol that's going to help. It's reversed my diabetes, it's reversed my blood pressure, my sleep apnea, the pain that I used to have in my body. I was on pain medications every single day, and I was titrating through different or rotating through different medications to try and keep my liver and my kidneys healthy and manage the amount of pain I had. And crazy enough, just by getting my insulin resistance under control, the pain went away. Most all of it went away. And when I say that, it's not just the fibromyalgia pain. Um, Backstory for me, I've had like 20 broken bones in my body, top to bottom. I have over 130 inches of scarring from injuries and surgeries that have had to happen throughout the years. There was a lot of pain and trauma to my body. I was in constant pain, so much so that I just didn't even want to leave the house anymore. Now that's not true. So was it the injuries that caused the pain, or was it the receptors being overloaded because my insulin was out of control that was causing this extreme amount of pain? For me, once I got the insulin under control, the pain went away. So understand that too, you guys. Insulin resistance is not just about body size. Insulin resistance and diabetes are not just about being overweight. It's causing havoc in so much of your body that you just are getting sick and not understanding why. Okay, so let me take a look at the list. Does anybody have questions about anything on this amazing list up here? Hey, Misha. Hey, Chai. Yeah, thank you, and thanks for joining in. So if you have, I don't know how to say your name. Is it Chai? So ask me. Yeah, thank you on YouTube. Yay, YouTube. So if you have questions about anything that's on this list over here that could be going wrong in your body, just ask and I will try and give a brief explanation of how it's linked in. But take a look at that list, because that's just a partial list of things that they're finding are related to insulin resistance. And when I was talking about trying to save my liver and not do too much medication, my liver was already at risk. My liver panel, my AST, my ALT were already going up, which means my liver was struggling, which would be a clue as to why about a year later I lost my gallbladder. Um, but my physician never, ever, ever, ever mentioned it. Why? Because they were so focused on the high blood pressure. They were so focused on the blood sugars and the A1C that were going up. They were so focused on that. And nobody, I'm not going to say nobody, most physicians aren't linking this together that, hey, the liver panel is going up, their liver is at risk. We need to be more aggressive because this person's body is breaking down. So You guys, insulin resistance is really causing problems throughout the body, throughout your life. And if you get it under control, you might just find that everything to do with your health starts to feel better. That's what's happened for me and thousands of other people. Um, and especially the people that I've worked with have I had a call the other night where somebody said, I just love you because I thought that life was just going to be about pain and disorder the rest of my life. And now I'm free of that and I can see what life should look like. So that's part of the reason why I'm here. Is it weird? Thursday mornings are always like the quietest for me. Okay, so insulin resistance links into all of that. But how do you fix it? We started talking about fasting, and I am all over the place this morning, but fasting, why fasting? I was talking about insulin and glucagon. We need to get insulin down so glucagon can do its job. Oh, yeah. So that's a great question, Chai, and we're going to come back to the fasting part. But so Chai says she has acute gastric pain. Sometimes it hurts when she eats and she's nauseous with food. Sometimes it tastes sour and bitter in her stomach. I was having the same problems and nobody was telling me what was going on. So that started getting worse for me this last year after my gallbladder had gotten taken out, and it was gastritis, right? That sounds just like gastritis. I'm going to be clear, I'm not a physician. I can tell you from what I know and help maybe you open your eyes to some other things. But that acute gastritis, so if your doctor has not already looked at your liver or your gallbladder, for me, I would go have that checked, because it means they're struggling. If you're having that kind of pain when you eat, they're not able to filter and process the foods that are coming through. And so um, every once in a while, what did I get into the other day? I ate something. Oh yeah, my grandson wanted Panda Express. So we had Panda and I was like, oof, I cannot. We are not doing Panda ever again, because I ended up with, it feels like an air balloon filled up in the top of my stomach, not even the lower part, but if that pain is like right up under your rib cage and it kind of expands throughout the side, that's your liver is right up here. And so is your gallbladder. Is attached to your liver right there, right? So when that's inflamed and hurting and it's struggling to process the foods that you just ate, so check what you were eating. Was it like seed oil, something drenched in seed oils? Was it something really high in sugar or something really acidic? Because when the liver's not functioning properly and the bile production, which helps break down the foods, isn't happening properly, you get this inflammation, bloating, and gas in that area because the liver's struggling. That's why that pain is right up there. So understand now, addressing my insulin resistance has helped get that better. But then I also had to do some stuff this last year. Like I have to take bile salts when I eat. I don't always remember, and I would do much better if I just did. And I can go over why if you want me to tell you. But and then I also take some digestive enzymes now because my gallbladder's gone. My liver was at risk. The panels are now normal, but I know that that poor guy was working way too hard for too many years, and I want to be careful with it because I want it to last the rest of the next 50, 100 years that I intend to live. So, got to take care of the liver. Now, how are you going to take care of the liver and insulin resistance? Understand, and I know that there's going to be people, and there's a guy out there who kind of, I don't know, I'm not even going to go there, but seed oils have been shown to cause inflammation, and that inflammation is exacerbating insulin resistance. So things like an excess of artificial sweeteners, that's a whole other thing. We'll talk about that in a second. If anybody wants to know, can cause spikes in insulin. So it's not just about sugar, but when we're talking about gastric pain, let me get back on track. Those seed oils that we tend to have available in our food because they're cheap. You guys, we have to stop thinking about our nutrition as cheap. What's the cheapest? What can I get for the least amount? What can I feed for that's the cheapest? If you guys understand that, if we all understand that, she said, yes, there's too much acid in the stomach and gas for almost a year. So I would love to invite you to try the system. You have a 90-day money back guarantee. and then we'll do some dietary changes, and I can explain some of that. Because when I coach people on the system, there's never an extra charge for that. Understand that also. But if you're having gastric pain, I would love to help you address your insulin resistance. And if you still have a gallbladder, let's try and get to it before it gets at risk like mine and has to be removed, because there's a whole other world of problems that happen when your gallbladder gets taken out. So, I can't remember where I was before I saw that message. You guys, it's been, I have had way too little sleep last night. Moving. I have said for a long time that I want to live to be 150. That's a goal. It's a crazy goal, right? This is why, because I feel like I have so much to do in life. I have so many people to help and so much influence to give. Um, then yeah, that's just a goal. I mean, from the time I was 5 years old, I used to go out in our garden in North Idaho. I'd sneak out of the house while everybody else was asleep and pray that God would take me and let me be used, and just let me help people in some way. So this seems to be the way that God has said, Misha, I want you to help people. And so if I can help people get their health back for another 100 years and impact people's lives, yeah, I'm all about that. Plus, then my crazy reality that I get to see my kids and my grandkids, my great grandkids, my great great grandkids, and just really help people in life. So yes, 150. Okay, so no gallbladder for years now, having bad acid reflux. Michelle, I'm starting to work on this, and it's been like I have so many things to work on. So this gallbladder thing is going a little slower than I would like. Um, so I'm going to give you what I know about the gallbladder right now. And then I'm working on writing a book for the layman, for those of us, especially women who've had our gallbladder removed, and to help us with life after a gallbladder, right? Um, and user 7480, if you go to my profile and tap on the link under the red lights, there's a place where there's WhatsApp. If you add me to WhatsApp, you can just text me and we can talk for sure. Um, you're just gonna be a ghost. Okay. You're just gonna be a ghost by that time. Yeah, yeah. Well, I know it's crazy. I look back when I was 20 or so, and I always bodhisattva, people who hang around longer to help people out. I always was like, that's what I want to be. Like when I was in the church and they were talking about the rapture and whatnot, I'm like, I want to be one left here to help everybody out. I don't want to take the escape bus, but that's my personality. That's not everyone's personality. So that's my specific quirky little mindset. Now back to the gallbladder. Um, Acid reflux. So if you have no gallbladder, Michelle, the system has helped me tremendously. And it's because it's kept my insulin levels down and because it helps me regulate those sugars so they're not flooding my system. But beyond the protocol that I'm going to talk about in a second, if you have no gallbladder, if your liver is struggling, a couple of things, and there is a my recommendations page. I don't sell them. I just have them there because that's what I use so you guys can see what I'm doing. But I do take some ox bile before I eat, or I'm supposed to. I do much better when I do, and I would recommend for me to you as a person just suffering with no gallbladder that you check out maybe as supplementing some ox bile, because that's going to help with the bile that your liver can no longer produce enough of and your gallbladder is not storing. So when you eat, it needs that bile to break down the food. No gallbladder, you don't have that. So it's going to be painful. And then digestive enzymes. Those are off too when your gallbladder and your liver are sick. So they're not breaking food down properly. Some digestive enzymes every time you eat is going to help you. And then doing the protocol that is helping get the insulin resistance down for what was probably the root of all of this in the first place. That's the things I would do. I would do the protocol to get the insulin under control, add some bile salts, and add some digestive enzymes for the no gallbladder or gallbladder at risk issue. That will tremendously help. Now, we've been trying to get into fasting and stuff. Let me stop and talk about the protocol. Then I want to come back to fasting, because one of the ways that I got my liver a bit healthier, a couple of ways, I do a cleanse every every 6 months, twice a year, I do a parasite cleanse, because our parasite cleanse is taking away more than just the parasites that are in our system. And it's helping clear out that intestinal and digestive tract so that it's healthier every time I do it. So it's gotten better and better and better every bout that I do this. Understand that it's not going to just like magically disappear in a week or 2 weeks, though. You're going to have some work to do to overcome the fact that your gallbladder got taken out. And I'm sorry. I wish the medical community would do so much better at talking to us about our kidney, our liver, our kidneys, our liver, and our pancreas even, and what happens when they're diseased and sick and why they're diseased and sick, because most of it comes from insulin resistance. And if we just addressed that, so many of us wouldn't be suffering. Okay. Nobody ever said a word to me about my liver and my gallbladder. And yet it was bad enough that I lost my gallbladder 2 years ago. Yeah. I'm not a doctor, Chai. So yeah. Oh, you have a Miss Chai, do you have a food channel about healthy lifestyle? I would love to talk and collaborate sometime. I'm always up for collaborating with people and helping share information. So, all right, so the gallbladder and the liver. Now we're going to go back to fasting. You've been literally dealing with it for 20 years and you're 53. Yeah. And it's painful, Michelle. Oof, I've only been dealing with it for 20 years. Oh, no, before we go back to fasting, I want to talk about this too. Understand that now, no gallbladder. You need those digestive enzymes. You need the bile when you eat, every time you eat. Okay, every time. That's going to assist you in having less of that pain, less of that bloating. Plus, it's going to assist you in being able to take fat off properly. When those digestive enzymes aren't able to break food down properly, you're getting fat in all the wrong places, and that's starting to make you even more sick now. But thyroid, when your gallbladder has been taken out, it messes with how your thyroid functions, interestingly enough. So even if you have normal levels of thyroid in your body, you may not be able to take up the thyroid properly, the thyroid hormones. And so it may feel like thyroid dysfunction because of the gallbladder being gone. It's crazy, right? And so what people will do is they'll run a thyroid test and be like, your thyroid levels are normal. But what they're not testing for is your thyroid able to take in and utilize those thyroid hormones? That all changes after the gallbladder has been removed. Those receptors in the thyroid are now changed due to a number of factors that I'm not well versed enough on yet to talk about. But I do know that the papers I've read and the doctors I've listened to have said that there is a huge link between having your gallbladder out and the way your thyroid functions. So it's not able to utilize those thyroid hormones. Now you're having other problems that look like hypothyroidism. So if you're experiencing that, understand that too. The answer, I don't have that answer yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on finding out now what. Okay, so great. Now I know that that's happening. What do I do? But what I do know, I'm going to come back, is that insulin resistance was at the root of all of that. So it's so, you guys, I was the one, right? That was like, oh, that's never going to happen to me. I'm just fine. That's everybody else. We have to wake up to the fact that we need to be preemptive in our health. Please don't wait till it's to the point where your gallbladder's gone. All of this stuff is happening before you decide to take action. Okay. Fasting. Why fasting? And this is going to link into what I've been doing to help with my gallbladder, or the lack of gallbladder, and my liver function, because it was last spring. I didn't talk about it a lot. I was in constant pain. I had nights I couldn't sleep because the acid reflux, the gas, the bloating, the all the stuff that goes along with it was keeping me awake at night, and I was just crabby and in so much pain that it was unreal. And so I had to start figuring out how to deal with it. Fasting is part of what helped. So, fasting and the cleanse. So, fasting, when we have this insulin that's too high all the time, what's really happening is our body is running off of insulin. And why do I say that? When we've eaten so much that's converted into sugar too much, and we have this level of insulin, What I'm gonna tell you guys is that our body starts to get used to where we're at. And so it starts to kind of preemptively be, this is what we're going to do as far as our metabolism. So in a normal person, insulin comes out as it's needed and it drops back down fairly quickly, maybe in 4 to 6 hours. But for a person who's eating every 2 hours, or eating foods that are not are converting into sugars in the system too quickly, what the body's learning is that it needs insulin constantly. So now insulin levels are rising in your system to be at the ready to help take that energy that the body says, oh, this person's going to eat. They're going to have those chips, they're going to have that candy bar, they're going to have that soda, they're going to have that fruit juice, they're going to have, those little protein bars. You guys, even those things that they're packaging as healthy, no, no, we don't need to eat that often. We're training our body to have insulin high in our system all the time. Now, once you're at this state, it takes 8 to 10 hours for that insulin level to come down. And remember, when that insulin level is high, the cells are like, I'm so sick of you, insulin. I don't want to hear from you anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just done. And then when that's high, it's just always there. So it's and you're eating constantly, but it's also not allowing the glucagon to come out and do its job. Insulin is a saver, glucagon is a spender. So if we're talking about even wanting to get rid of cells that are dying and need to be cycled through, they can't get out. Glucagon's not able to come out and be the cleanup crew that it is, because insulin is saying, nope, I put all this in savings, you're not going to get rid of it. So we have to get insulin down. And the only way to get insulin down long term is to do some intermittent fasting or stop eating all the time. Yeah. So keto works great for some people, but yeah, it does. And I tend to eat ketoistic. The last few weeks I haven't been doing as good. So we're going to talk about that here in a second too, because you do want to focus on fats or protein and fats in your diet. That's going to help tremendously. But this whole thing with fasting, so now if you can fast, let's talk about the timeline of it. And we're just going to talk about what's the most uh, overall for everybody. So if you eat dinner about 6 and you say, I'm not going to eat anymore, so you don't eat anymore after about 6 in the evening, it takes a couple of hours for for your body to really start to digest through and your blood sugars to peak. It takes about 4 hours for those blood sugars to actually start dropping down. And then it takes about 6 hours before they level out after we've eaten a normal meal that has a normal amount of carbohydrates for most of us. It's about 8 hours after we've eaten when all of that happens and the body says, okay, there's no more energy here. Because the body's not going to be like, oh, my blood sugar dropped, insulin, go away. It's going to still have things. It takes a little while for your body to shift. So about 8 hours after you eat before that insulin level comes down. Now, most of us, if we're snacking and stuff before we go to bed, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then we wake up, we're starting to eat again, and then our insulin level has just gotten down, and we eat, and our insulin level comes back up. So poor glucagon never gets to come out to play. Now, when insulin is down, it waits a couple of hours. Glucagon's over there waiting around, like, is that insulin bully going to come out again? Nope, they're gone. I can come out. And then about 10 hours after you've eaten, glucagon finally gets to come out. And it's starting to run through the body and say, hey, we can party now because this insulin guy is gone. And it takes a couple of hours to get that message out that, hey, glucagon is in charge now. Glucagon is going to help you burn fat. It's going to help you get rid of those junk cells. Things, our cells are turning over in our body about every 9 weeks. So it's just kind of like this cleanup crew. About 2 hours after glucagon comes out, your gut's going to start to reset. So some of that negative microbiota in your gut is going to start to clear out, and the body's starting to say, okay, let's get rid of this fat. Let's get rid of these inflamed cells, these diseased cells, these cells that are dead and really need to go anyway. That's starting to happen about 12 hours into a fast. Is it really fasting? You just didn't eat for 12 hours. About 14 hours in, your body's really saying, okay, hey, we're going to need some energy now. and insulin's not here, and this person finally stopped shoving food in their face. So we're going to start pulling energy from not just the fat, but these other cells that it can convert into energy and give you energy. So you're not starving, you're not hangry, you're not having all of that going on. You actually probably have some of the best mental clarity and energy of your life in that 12 to 16 hour period that most of us are just putting food back in our face and stopping that process. Understand that insulin is a fat storer and glucagon is a fat burner. So if you're looking at wanting to get fat out of even like your liver, your pancreas, your kidneys, your stomach, your lungs, your all of that, you need glucagon to be in charge to help that. Insulin is not going to allow that to happen. Insulin is going to continue to store fat. It's going to block fat breakdown. It's going to block fat burning. So it's not just about the size of your body. It's about the internal organs and how overloaded they are with fat, and the fact that we need to clean them out. Stage 3 kidney disease is partly in the insulin receptors being off in there, but it's partly because it's getting overloaded and cramped out by all this fat we have in our gut. A very simple term, right? Our liver is the number one um, converter of things like fructose. So I talk about fructose a lot. Keep fruits at a minimum, have them, but don't have them as the main basis of your meal. Our liver is the one that digests fructose. I had like 10 words competing for attention in my head right there. So your liver is really working hard when you have fructose that's constantly coming in. So sources of glucose from things like vegetables and proteins are much easier on your liver than fruits are. So liver problems, start staying away from fruits and keep the fruit juice out of your cupboards. Don't have it in. Just don't do fruit juice because it's just fruit that's been stripped from fiber. So now we're going to talk about fasting, fiber, protein, and fats. Okay, we did fasting a little bit and why. Why we need to do a little bit of 16-hour fasting. Before I get off of fasting, to get my liver turned around, Michelle, I started doing last spring when it was the worst. I did some extended fasts and I think the first time I did a 7-day fast, and then I was like, okay, a couple months later, I'm going to do a 10-day fast. And then I waited 3 or 4 months and I did a 5-day fast. But every time I did those fasts, and I did some videos on it, um, what's happening is in the absence of insulin now, not only is my metabolism starting to reset, but I'm starting to allow my body to clean up some of the stuff that's been going on for 40 years, including the liver. So how I stopped my gastritis was continuing to address my insulin, and I did some more aggressive fasting. Now, people don't want to hear that, but if you're that sick and you've already lost a gallbladder, you might want to take a look at doing what you need to do to clean up your liver. Beyond fasting, stay away from highly refined sugars and stay away from seed oils. Anybody wants me to go over seed oils? I will go over that in a minute. And chai, yes, high blood pressure is one of my favorite things to talk about. She said, "Can you explain the causes of high blood pressure?" Absolutely. This is like you just hit my favorite thing in the world besides mental health issues. So, and then seed oils. So, chai, I'll come back to the high blood pressure. I want to wrap up with seed oils. So the oils that I do recommend, you guys, when Ansel Keys came out and said fat was creating, heart issues and all of these issues, there was no science behind it, and it was quickly negated. But by that time, the food industry had already realized that, hey, if we strip fats out, people stay satiated less. So fats help you stay satiated. You're eating less food when you're focusing on fats. When you're focusing on sugars, it tastes good if you're getting flavor in the food, but it goes through your body pretty quickly and you need more food and more energy more quickly. So boon for the food industry that the Ansel Keys said fats are bad for you, because they replaced fats with sugar, and therein began this whole insulin resistance problem that we're living with today. And even though that was debunked right away, people still believe that fats are creating fat. Now, So the fats that I recommend are extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, and your animal fats. And people are going to be like, oh my gosh, Misha, that's going to cause high cholesterol. No, it doesn't. Sugar causes high cholesterol. But we're going to come back to seed oils. So now we're going to take those fats because those are healthy. If you look at a coconut and you squeeze the fruit of coconut, you're going to find that there's a good amount of fat in there. Milk, whole milk has a good amount of fat in it. So that's butter, ghee, right? Avocados, we all know avocados are really high in fat and they're good fat. And olives also. Olives are a great source of fat. But the seed oils, let's talk about a little bit. Rockefeller started he was like, we have all this food waste. We have all this stuff that we can't use. And so what are we going to do? Let's figure this out. And they started to design a way to take the waste of the food, and this is not just seed oil, so I'm talking also about like the vegetable oil that you have. And they devised a way to compress all of this waste and then drench it in a solvent called hexane to pull the oils out, because hexane is cheap, but it is a solvent. Now they've pulled out this oil, and through the modification of it, it has a high flash point, so it doesn't like catch fire or go rancid as quickly as the oils I just named. But those oils, partly because of the hexane and a number of other things in the body, start to create a rise of insulin in the body, but they're also creating inflammation. So what I want you to think about with any oil is a couple of things. If you can't squeeze it and get oil out of it, like peanut oil is better than some because peanuts are oily. If you make peanut butter, you're going to see that there's oil. If you grind up raw peanuts, you're going to see oil rise to the top. That's a healthier solution, right? But when we think about some of these other seeds, black seed oil, yes, I get there's some properties to that we need for some of us, but most seed oils, understand the biggest problem I have with them is that they're drenched in this hexane, which is a solvent, and people are like, oh, well, they've cleared it. Well, you can't clear all of that out. So now you're utilizing a toxin in your system to try and cook your food in. Those oils were starting to be developed. It started with the junk waste, the vegetable oils. Remember when vegetable oil started coming out? Now they had this oil that was meant to be a machine oil, but as entrepreneurs, they were like, how can we market this and get more sales out of it, get more use out of it, get more bang for our buck? And so they were like, oh, well, it's a food-based product. Let's just market it as a cooking oil. And now you have, oh, John, this is not my area of expertise, but I would invite you to go listen to Dr. Bickman on this or Dr. Lustig on this, and they'll probably be able to give a much better explanation. But yeah, that's where I got the information, so you can talk to them about that. Um, and then, so anyway, science has shown that these seed oils do cause an increase in insulin resistance because of an increase in inflammation in the gut. Um, so, John, then give me some science about it, and we can talk. Um, Now, chai, the causes of high blood pressure. So, with insulin resistance, I want you to understand that 95% of high blood pressure comes from insulin resistance. I mean, I'm not talking about like genetic disorders or that, but the rest of our high blood pressure is coming from this thing called insulin resistance. And I'll give you 5 ways that insulin is causing this high blood pressure. Okay. So, the one way that I like to talk about the most, or I don't know, it's just is always on my mind the most because it's when we have insulin resistance. Don't think that every cell in the body is resistant to insulin. We have some cells that I consider um, drama queens. They're like, oh, there's more insulin, I'll take up that extra insulin. So the endothelial cells, the inner lining of the blood vessels, are some of those what I call drama queen cells. They're going to take in more of that insulin, and so that layer inside of the blood vessel is going to start to get thicker, and that means less less space for blood to flow through. So think about it. If your blood vessel, interior wall of your blood vessel was like this, and you're pumping blood through it, and now all of a sudden you have insulin resistance, and the endothelial, or the inner lining of the blood vessels, starts to thicken up, that means the space in the middle is now smaller. So you have the same volume of blood, but a smaller space for it to go through. That's number one way. Insulin resistance, this excess insulin, this excess energy, is getting taken up by the inner wall of your blood vessels, making them too thick, and that reduces the space for blood to flow through. Then we have the fact that it does evolve your kidneys, and it starts to change how your kidneys can um, filter salts and get salts out of your system. So if you've heard avoid salts if you have high blood pressure, it's because your kidneys are not getting rid of the salts, and so now those are staying in your blood. Now where salt goes, water goes. So now you have blood that has more water in it because more salt. So now you're increasing the volume and trying to force that through this even smaller space that the blood has to flow through. So that's the second. It involves the kidneys. So then number three, we have this chemical in our bodies called nitric oxide that helps our blood vessels open up and relax so that they can have this normal, they'll contract when there's less blood flow and expand when there's more. But with insulin resistance, that nitric oxide is being produced in the endothelial cells that are already overloaded and thick. Now they're not producing that nitric oxide. So now your vessels are smaller, you have more blood flow coming through it, but they're also not getting this nitric oxide that allows them to relax, so they're stiff and they can't open up like they should. Okay, so that's number three. Then we're going to talk about I always miss one. There's five and I love them, but at times I just miss them. I want to go on to cholesterol with it. So, oh, no. Okay, that's it. So with insulin resistance, it's playing with cortisol. So high levels of cortisol can cause high levels of insulin. And you're going to find with insulin that a lot of these hormones, it doesn't always just start with insulin. It can start with one of the other hormones, cause the insulin resistance, and now we have this race to who can be the most dysfunctional. But when our cortisol levels are raised, it means our body is under this is under a fight or flight response. So our heart is beating faster, right? And it's cueing for more blood flow. With insulin resistance, that cortisol is constantly raised a little bit. Cortisol elicits the fight or flight response. And so now you have a blood that's pumping a little harder all the time. Thank you, Alicia. So that heart that's pumping a little harder all the time, now we have blood vessels that are smaller, blood vessels that are tighter, too much water, and now a heart that's trying to force even more of it more rapidly through. Now you're starting to have a higher blood pressure. But the last way that this insulin is causing blood pressure problems is this. When we think about cholesterol, do you guys think that tell me, are fats what's causing the cholesterol issue in our blood vessels? If you think fats, if you agree with that statement, fats are causing the cholesterol issue, then type a 1 in the chat and we'll talk about that. And yeah, less of those seed oils and less sugar for sure. So yeah, Alicia, and that's the point. That's kind of where I started too. So I'm not perfect on some topics. I can't get into all of the because I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor. But I've noticed for myself, we're going to come back to the seed oils before we deal with, because we're back on fats now, right? When I have those seed oils, those which I don't have them in my kitchen anymore, um, I'm not as versed on heart palpitations, but if your heart is starting to suffer, I'll tell you this. The science that I do know is when we look at blood pressure and heart, this high level of insulin causing these other five functions to go bad with the heart. 80% of cardiovascular disorders and diseases and deaths are caused by long-term high blood pressure. So logically for me, I would say I would address the insulin resistance and see what can happen. Can I tell you that getting your insulin resistance under control is going to stop your heart palpitations? I can't. Can I tell you it's worth seeing what can happen? Yeah, I can. So much got better with my health that I never even knew by just trying to address this. And that's what's happened for me. So, um, all right. So the last way, the fats. You guys, it's not the fats that are causing fat in your blood, the cholesterol in your blood. So excess sugar is causing that. The LDL that everybody says is bad for the body. I'm going to invite everybody to listen to. Maybe I'll get a recording of Dr. Lustig talking about fats and get it up here. But Dr. Bickman talks about it, Dr. Fung talks about it, and they are neither one proponents of seed oils. By the way, Dr. Bickman spends a lot of time talking about how negative seed oils are for you. But so when you have high amounts of sugar, it changes the way your body converts fat. What most people don't realize is there are two types of LDL. There's a type A, which is large and buoyant and just kind of floats around and doesn't get stuck. So you're carrying this fat around your body. The type B LDL, or bad cholesterol, is smaller, denser, and it wants to kind of like drop and sink and get sticky. So when we have this miscue in our brain, and we're no longer producing the right amounts of those two types of LDL, because not all LDL is bad, um, then we just have an overload of this type B that's cued by excess sugar in the brain, and that type B LDL is what's getting sticky and clogging up your arteries. So if you're having cholesterol problems, yeah, I'm still going to say stay away from the seed oils, eat the healthier oils that I mentioned, and then get rid of the sugar from your diet and start to exercise a little more. And you should be able to see some cholesterol improvement and some blood pressure improvement. So let's talk about a calculation that you can do for insulin resistance. And then I'm going to talk about the protocol that I use, and then we'll go back to questions if you want. But if you guys have your labs, and like Chai said, bad cholesterol is very dangerous for the body, but they don't measure for how much type A or type B is in there. So there's a calculation that they've come out with. This is on the NIH's webpage. It's in Dr. Bickman's book. But what I want you to do is look at your cholesterol panel. You should find triglycerides listed on there. And you want to take that number and write it down. You want to find your HDL. We're not even going to look at the LDL. Write down the number for the HDL. You're going to put those two numbers, you're going to say triglycerides divided by HDL. The number that you get should be 1.5 or less. And I believe that they're going to start lowering that number a little bit, but that's completely speculative, right? So right now, 1.5 or less, you should be pretty safe with your insulin resistance. You should be pretty healthy. But if it's 1.5 or higher, not only does it show you the risk for insulin resistance because of this whole way sugar converts into LDL, and that number, it gets really complicated and I cannot explain it. That calculation tells us how much of the bad LDL is being produced in the body, which is that difference. So the more of the small LDL, the more likely you are to have cholesterol and heart issues. So that calculation is both for risk of heart disease and insulin resistance. Isn't that interesting? That one calculation is telling you risk of heart disease and it's telling you the risk of insulin resistance. That would be enough clue to me to say that insulin resistance is causing a big part of this problem. Okay. Yes, I have a number of people with Hashimoto's who have taken the product. I had Hashimoto's and I've done well. My thyroid levels are all right, like they're not like at the bottom of normal, they're not at the top of normal, they're all right in the middle. Now I've been on the system for 2 years, my thyroid levels have leveled out. So I have other women who've done this that have Hashimoto's who feel like their symptoms are gone and their thyroid levels are normalized as well. So Hashimoto's is autoimmune, and some doctors are starting to say that autoimmune diseases are all begin in as inflammation in the gut. So insulin resistance is causing a ton of inflammation in the gut, and in some ways in that way can be linked to some of these autoimmune diseases. And again, this is real food products. It's not medications. You have a 90-day money back guarantee. So if you start taking it and you're consistent with it and you're not feeling like it's working for you, you get your money back. But at the same time, you're building a better gut microbiome. You're helping clean up the sugar out of your system, and you're getting energy and clarity that's not causing your heart to be at risk. So why not try it? Okay. So with that, let's talk about the system. The system that I use is a system based on 2 food products that I take at 3 points during the day. It's taken my blood pressure at some point in the day, 2.5 years ago, my blood pressure would be 180 over 150 every day. There were days it would be well up over 200 on the systolic and like 160 on the diastolic. We could never get it below 150 over 110 at any point during the day. And it was devastating. My doctor was terrified. That's why she wasn't looking at my liver or any of the other stuff, because she was so concerned about my ticker. Now, um, I was concerned because this gave me so much energy. I'm like, what are you doing? Your blood pressure is already high. This actually helps normalize or helps with healthy blood pressure. It helps with healthy mental state. It's getting components through that blood-brain barrier that are helping your brain function, so you're having less anxiety, depression. But it acts like a GLP-1 in your system. So it's shutting down hunger in the gut. It's shutting down hunger in the brain. Now you're having less hunger and need to eat all the time. So this I have in the morning. That's what you've been seeing me drink this morning. It tastes great. I actually have it mixed up cold as well. You can see I've started drinking that. But as soon as I finish up this hot one, I will start drinking the cold one. I have more than one a day because it's giving my body health. That's the first part of the protocol. The second part is fiber. We haven't even talked about fiber yet. The key to slowing down this delivery of energy into our system where it's being too rapid is that fiber has been stripped out of our foods. And it's not just one type of fiber, it's multiple types of fiber. We need more than one type of fiber to do this job. So those canister fibers, they have maybe one component. Their primary component is psyllium husk, and psyllium husk can be very hard on the gut as well. So this is a multi-fiber complex that's been scientifically designed for this purpose. So it has soluble fibers and insoluble fibers in it. What they do is slow down the delivery of glucose into the system. They help you feel full before you eat. They slow down that energy delivery and the food delivery through the intestinal tract, so that now you're staying fuller longer and your energy levels are leveling out because that delivery is happening more evenly in your system. I have this before I eat anything, 10 minutes before I eat anything. And that's it. It's real food products. It's actually helping the gut microbiome, helping reduce the insulin. This one was developed as a mental health tool, but it works so well because of the GLP-1 type properties in this, that it works well for helping with insulin resistance. So you're just going to go to my profile page and we're going to find it up there. So I'm going to share it over here on on YouTube as well. Thanks for joining in this morning. Oh, it's a crazy, crazy morning today for me. I am not sure what in the world is going on outside of the fact that I have too much going on. It's probably why it's crazy for me. I'm about a week and a half away from moving, and I got a bunch of other things going on, so it's crazy. All right, so we're going to go to my profile picture, tap on that. There'll be a white box come up below. When that comes up, you're going to see my profile. And when we get to my profile, when you get to my profile, we are going to see this. Get myself under control because I'm about to lose everything off the desk. And then I'm trying to use my mouse for my computer to run, run my phone. You guys, it's about time for me to be done. So you're going to see my profile page. And what you really want to you're going to find this picture of me at the top. And it'll say Misha Fayon. Right below it, you'll see the red lights. There's that link there. Click on that link. That will take you to my landing page where all of the links to my life are. The first one is where you can get the system with the fiber and all of that. My coaching you get with that. You get a 90-day money back guarantee. You get my discounts. So you're saving money on it. And you're getting a quality guarantee. The products are tested at 3 points during the process to make sure that they have what they're supposed to. You just click on that. You want to make sure, I've had so many issues with this week, you guys, if you want me to coach you, if you want me to reach out to you, if you want me to help you with stuff, you've got to make sure it says Michelle Fayant on this page or you're not buying from me. Okay, and so then I don't get notifications and I don't know. Then you click on the buy now, but I want you to notice this is directly from the company website. This is not from me now. And then you're going to see the 30 tea and the 60 of the pre-meal drink. That gives you the month. A tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before you eat your first 2 biggest meals of the day. That's the system. The tea you can have hot or cold, and it comes in 3 different flavors. And the pre-meal drink just comes in this light orange flavor. Tastes kind of like a light orange creamsicle. You're going to mix that one up in water and drink it down quickly. So that's what has changed my insulin resistance and my health over the last 2 years. But I want to show you this too. Even when you go to my website, where there's a ton of information, including the nutritional information under the products pages, when you click on this buy now, it's always going to direct you back to the company. So the company is fulfilling it. You're getting products directly from them. They've been stored and handled properly. So you just want to make sure that that's happening. If you're going to Amazon, Walmart, and eBay, and I've had a lot of this happening too, I don't know that you bought it. You bought it from somebody who's not affiliated with the company, because there's nobody on those platforms that's affiliated or authorized to sell there. So we found pirated products, expired products, and almost everybody that's bought from there realized they spent about $100 more than they needed to for the product. So just please use the link and save yourself the time. It's not circumventing anything but your own success when you do that. So, all right, now back to questions. That's where the product is, you guys, and it's really that simple. And look, I'm taking a break from traveling. I manifested travel, and then I just got to a point where I was like, I need to sit still. I have had so much going on. But when I was traveling every couple months or every month, and I have to go through airplanes and all of that, do I want to carry this? Because it's going to get me stopped at security, right? They're going to go through that. And it's not doing the job. Or do I want to just put this in my purse? Now I have the right serving at the right time. So I just take it and one of those little bottles of water from the airport and I mix it up. Wherever I go, if you look in the side pocket of my purse right now, there's probably double of this. So there's probably 4 of these and 2 or 3 of these in my purse right now. But have it with me wherever I go. And that's it. You mix it in water 10 minutes before you eat, and you're helping your blood sugars and you're helping your hunger with this one. So breakthrough hunger and snacking, that one works well for that. Okay. Thank you, Rex. So, and how much is it? It costs about $5 a day. So the overall, the monthly expenditure is going to be $159 if you just order it one time. So here's the thing, and I want you guys to save money. If you do the subscription, you can cancel that at any time, but it's going to save you an additional $5 off. So now it's only $154. Plus, they're not going to charge you shipping. So now that's about another $10 for most of us. Just by putting it on subscription that you can cancel anytime, you're saving about $15 on the product. They also send you a free Milkster hand mixer to help with mixing the product as a gift for just being on subscription. They'll send you an email out 5 days before your next subscription comes out. And they're like, good news, your order is being processed. That's your warning. Do you want to add something? Do you want to take something away? Do you need to change the date? You can do all of that. Do you need to cancel it, skip a month? You can do all of that when they send you that email out. And if you don't know how to get there, you can either call customer service or just call me and say, Misha, I need help. And I will help you. Okay. So any other questions on any of this, you guys? I know I was super late getting on this morning. I appreciate you all. And to be honest, I will go look up some more stuff on hexane and talk about that. But hexane is a solvent and it is toxic in the body. So those 2 things I know for sure. And I do know when I eat seed oils, I will have gastritis pain. I will be in the bathroom. So I have to be very careful with where I eat and what, because when you get a hold of those oils, it is causing problems in the body. I don't need science to tell me that. My body will tell me that within an hour of eating it, and I will know it for hours after. Okay, so any other questions from you guys on any of this stuff? I'll be back. Today was really crazy. I was later than normal. You're very welcome, Chai. Um, oh yeah, some of her chat's gone. So all right, Chai has a couple of questions I missed. I'm sorry. So she's over on YouTube. She says sometimes there are those on a diet who drink tea, but there's a side effect of diarrhea, stomach ache due to exercise, taking a long time to get slim. How about that? So this is a very specific type of tea that we're talking about. It's one herbal tea called yerba mate. I just did a video on my channel from um, Dr. Huberman talking about how he's a huge proponent of yerba mate tea or herbal mate tea and how it has those GLP-1 actions. We have people who've been drinking this tea for more than a decade and you're not having diarrhea and that. I'm not sure. Oh, I do know. I mean, I can assume one of the things that's really great about the products that we have is not only is it pure and scientifically, validated and designed, especially for this one, um, it's been purified. We found a lab in Switzerland that does this process called hyperpure. So it does strip away a lot of those PAHs, toxins, pesticides, and molds. So the typical tea, the typical bagged herbal tea, normally comes with a lot of pesticides attached to it. Okay. It's also, some of it has mold because of the way it's stored and it just gets processed. And now you're drinking all of that in and it's not kind to your gut. So, one of the other reasons I love this tea, I haven't gone over it very in depth, so I'll do that now. This tea has 375 times the chlorogenic acids of the regular herbal mate tea that Dr. Huberman talks about. So all of those benefits that he's talking about that are kind of mild with herbal mate tea, you can see better benefits because this has now been, it's an extract of those components from the tea and then it's concentrated and then we run it through a process that's hyper purifying it. So now you're not getting all of those negative gut issues. That would be my the thing. I mean, some teas may have other components in them that are causing that, I'm sure, but that's not my specialty. I do know that they come with a lot of toxins a lot of times, and you just don't know that until you start having gut issues. Um, all right. So, any other? Thank you, Batman. I hope to see you again. Pamsley, thank you. You guys, I am going to sign off. I'm going to work on getting a video up about the products and why they're so good, and get that up this week. I have been really lax on my videos this week because it's been busy. Appreciate you all. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm going to make every effort to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning and not be late. So I'll see you guys then. Have a great day. Chai, thank you.